was a bug there. They had to restart.
Oh dear.
Epsilon already started with a flag, which is definitely
interesting. Very
yeah,
interesting.
you're going to look very much a two-flag hold unless one team gets an absolute domination in a few... if one team manages to completely wipe out, then yeah, it's happening again.
Well, I suppose it's because of where they're spawned. So it's because they're actually within the burn area. Also, it looks like the royal team there are within the burn area. So it actually means that they're actually capturing one of those points right from the start, which is making things rather interesting. Now, whether or not they decide to go that way,
with this or not, it will be interesting. Maybe Epsilon will be like, well, good luck with that. I guess they are going to go live with that now anyway, it looks. Yes, they are.
Okay, so here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are live with Epsilon and Royal. So let's find out what's going on, as obviously you can now see that the Chinese team, who are obviously the Royals, and you can see there obviously Yroz and Commander Vent, the Unisex, Crips, Dirty Harry and Skill Boost, and in for Epsilon you have Unfixed, Winghaven, Valu, Mort and Too Easy. So let's see how these guys are actually going to do things. Now, we're looking at Winghaven here over on one side of the main garage. You can see there a little bit of fire coming in, and yes, using the Ace 23 as you predicted earlier, Dogbert. And what's your analysis thus far of the situation?
Epsilon going pretty much to hold the scene B here, which is definitely what they wanted to do. They were caught out by one of the spawns right behind C. They managed to correct that now, but I think what you're going to see here is a C and B hold. At one point, Mort did try and make a move onto A, but he was caught out quite early. But now the ticket bleed is in Epsilon's favour, after originally being 2 flags down for the first minute of the game.
Okay.
It's how Epsilon now obviously are going to probably be holding the B and A. They're probably going to give up the C flag, but you can pretty much hold A and B from the road, and you can pretty much see both flag points from then on. They're going for a pretty much aggressive posture, sitting outside of the B flag. They can peek into C quite easily, and right now they're just pretty much holding position with one roamer in case Unisex managed to push on to B successfully.
Now obviously what you're looking at here is a little bit of rooftop action going on with the Royal guys, and you can see Skill Boost up there as well, along with Commander Vent, and you can now see them trying to push a little bit of pressure down onto the B-bomb site. But I don't think... oh, there we go, one of the... that was Unfixed, taken down as he was trying to hide behind the metal crating, trying to obviously hold people off on that B-bomb site. And it looks like the B site is now being taken, and you can see Skill Boost and the team, but it looks like Mort and friends have now literally cycled round and have basically tried to cut them off at the pass, so to speak, and now they're getting in there to try and kill as many people as possible. Unisex, Dirty Harry gets taken down, and the point becomes quickly recaptured by Epsilon. Dogbert.
As you can see there, they know pretty much what they need to do here. They only need to get 2 flags, they don't need to do anything else. They got caught out a little bit there, but they quickly recovered and they managed to get their 5-man straight onto B and hold it. Now they're moving players back to just hold their C point, but really, I don't think you're going to see much more than this. I think whenever they feel that they're in a dominating position, they'll send an extra guy out to maybe threaten the uncaptured flag, as they're doing now with Too Easy. But right now, it's basically just finding out where the majority of the effort is coming from the Unisex team.
Right, okay, let's just see what's going on, as we're now obviously watching the Too Easy making his way over towards the C point. Now, as you can see here, it looks like they were trying to get a full bleed onto that point, and now as we follow Winghaven, who's now moving down in quite an aggressive position, looks like he's doing a little bit of rooftop dancing, and now you can see him making a quick attack onto Commander Vent. Now he makes his way across, and he's waiting to see what's going on As you can see, looks like a quick lift run. There we go. Poor old Winghaven taken down from behind. Very nasty indeed by Y-Roz. And now he's going to try and move into the point as Epsilon Too Easy's nearby. Takes down multiple members, but then gets taken down from behind. Very nasty indeed. But then fortunately, it looks like he's just been picked up by another member of Epsilon. And now it's looking like the points are being captured in short order. As you can see, Too Easy moving in towards the B bomb site. So looking pretty dominant here at the moment, I think it's fair to say. Although the tickets don't necessarily reflect that, would you say?
Well, the thing with Epsilon is they're getting a significant amount of the kills, but whenever their bleed is even against them, they generally overwhelm quite quickly and get the bleed back in their favour. If you're doing this time-wise, Epsilon's had the bleed in their favour for majority of the game so far.
Okay, so that's the kind of thing that they're going to be looking to establish, is obviously, at least as long as they've got one or two of the flags at any one time, that's exactly the kind of bleed that they want. So we're going to follow in with Unfixed, who's now currently doing his best Joan of Arc impression, and is now sitting around the area of the B capture point, as looks like the bleed is now in favour of the Chinese team for the first time in this round. And it looks like that Epsilon are going to have to try and turn it around to try and get that bleed off of them and back onto the Chinese team. As we're now seeing, as you've got obviously Winghaven moving in towards one of the other points, taking pot shots at the enemy, popping nades over. He gets taken down from behind, one of those random spawns yet again. And you're obviously following with Value as he's also moving into the same area where Winghaven was generally sniffing around, and now might be in a position to try and capture that point. But the bleed is now being taken away as the B point is being captured here by the China team, and the C point is being captured at the same time by Epsilon. So looking interesting so far, wouldn't you say, Dogbert?
Yeah, I mean, what happened there? I mean, Epsilon here is going to hold on to the C point. I think it's very silly for Unisex to try and even bother trying to contest this right here, because they're bleeding a lot of their own deaths into this. But I was quite interested to see how Epsilon reacted to only having the B flag when Unisex had C and A. They split up to 2 sending to A and 2 going into C. Now this would be okay, but they were intercepted both times, caught into slugging matches which they lost every single one of them and ended up losing B as well. Only thing that saved them was a huge spawn onto C where they were able to overwhelm. But it was quite surprising to see Epsilon spread themselves out thin, going on the attack but not getting any single flag.
Okay, so now obviously we can see now that the Chinese team, which is obviously we're looking in as the Royals, they actually have 2 tickets in their favour, and we're looking at 96 tickets in favour of US and 110 for China. So it's again with the situation of Epsilon, they have the bleed against them, and I don't see them pushing forward in order to actually get those 2 points back. We can obviously see the Cryptleet on the left hand side here getting into a little bit of a running battle with his 416 with one of the enemy, and it looks like Too Easy was going in for a flank, but it looks like those 2 points are being well held by the Royal team, and Epsilon need to do something to get this bleed off them very quickly, Dogbert.
Epsilon are looking to group up here and push on to B. They're going to do this to try and suck as many of the opposing team to try and defend B, then to hope for either overwhelming them and capturing it, which they've just gone and done here, or they're hoping for a good spawn in a good position. This was really sloppy play by Unisex, where they should have had more people around B, but they started to move a bit more to their left onto the A flag, which wasn't really being threatened at all. It's exactly the opening Epsilon needed. They were in a sticky situation there, but they were able to overwhelm and control at B.
Now, when you're talking about map control and spawn control and things like flag and capture point control, what is the ideal situation that you are looking to have when you're having these kind of 5-on-5 infantry combats?
They really... It comes down to a lot of things. First of all, if you're in a position where your opponent has to come to you, then really you shouldn't be caught out. You want quick revives generally if you are able to do it, but you definitely just need to be able to be fluid, not to be stuck in a same position. You want to get around the back of them. I mean, you want to pick them off. You do not want to be predictable, because if you are, they know where you're going to come from. They're going to at least flank you, and if worse, just hold you there while the ticket bleed goes against you.
Now, obviously, what we're doing is we're watching the process of Epsilon recapturing the tickets. Now you notice that the ticket numbers 71 to 67, it's now back in favour of Epsilon, and they can turn it around. Obviously they've got those 2 flag capture points. Now you can see obviously what they've done is they looks like they've decided to split their forces. You've got Winghaven who's trying to defend that B point, but you've got Valu who's also floating between those 2 points. So he's floating between C and B. Unfortunately, he just got taken down by 3 members of the Royal team, now pushing up towards B, but it now means that the likes of Too Easy and Winghaven can then start pushing back against them, and it looks like you've got Mort up there as well, doing a little bit of roof topping, and hopefully they can get that capture point back again. But it looks like they've decided to cycle around and go towards the A point there, Dogbert. What's your thoughts on that?
They did a very good job there. They had been pressuring B significantly for a lot of this game. They got a pick on A, and then from then on 2 members of Epsilon spawned straight on top of Unfixed and would manage to take A. And right now they're going to go for they're going for B as well, and they're going to take that. I mean, at this point, really, they just need to. The lead isn't significant. It's 63 to 45. If they manage to lose the bleed. At any point in this, it could switch very quickly, so they really need to just keep control, hold tight, and bleed out this game.
Yeah, now obviously we're looking at Mort, who's covering the B-bomb site, obviously working together with Valu, and then we've got Winghaven in there having a little bit of a battle with some of the additional enemies as they're coming through, and he's obviously picking and choosing when he takes his shots. Unfortunately, the guy got away from him, so we're watching him trying to cover that point. It looks like we're going to have a couple of guys sniffing around that area. There we go, Winghaven taking down Y-Roz very quickly, and obviously seeing if he can get a second pick onto the enemy. There we go, goes out, and Winghaven takes a second guy down. So that was an attempted push there by the Royal team, shut down by a single defender. That was Epsilon Winghaven doing a good job and holding on to the A point there, Dogbert.
Winghaven basically just secured the victory on this round for Epsilon, managing to tie down 2 people, and not just tying them down, but he ended up killing them, holding them for a long enough time that that bleed is now irreversible for the Unisex team. And Epsilon will cruise to the first round victory in what is, to be honest, a harder side to win with.
Okay, so now obviously this is going to be interesting to see how things turn out for the second round, as things will change around. And there we have it. That is the first round on the board. 56 tickets in favour of Team Epsilon. So an interesting first encounter. What's your thoughts generally on that actual battle? Because obviously one thing that people expect is that Epsilon will either always win or they always want Epsilon to lose. So was that closer, do you think, than Epsilon would have liked, or do you think they were just getting used to how things are? What's your thoughts?
I think Epsilon are obviously a love-hate team in the Battlefield community. They started off very well. They got the flags that they wanted. They had the initial bleed for the first few minutes, but at one point Unisex did manage to wrestle control, and a few failed pushes by Epsilon were shut down. But Epsilon managed, with their superior experience, to ride out the setbacks and managed to get a control back in the game. Winghaven obviously being very important in some critical positions, but they realised which flags they couldn't get, and they changed their position of their attack and maximised the numbers of players they had in the right place.
Okay, so that's what it's all about really at the end of the day, and we're just waiting to go on to the next round on this particular map. Obviously now China are going to start off with a flag because of that lovely little spawn point. Wonderful little spawn point that it is, as you can see. So obviously we're following the Epsilon guys. They're all in, ready to go, and the countdown timer has begun. Now, with only 56 tickets the difference, what are the Royal team going to have to do to try and turn this around, Dogbert?
I feel that what they need to do is get a hold of C and B. These are going to be the most critical flags. B is a very open one. They need to just get a hold of the game. They need to be able to set up a good line of defence and hold it. And that's going to be difficult because Epsilon are going to hold B and they're going to take A quite quickly. And the worst thing that can happen for Unisex here is they get stuck on holding C, and that is it.
Now, one thing I have noticed is that one of the first things that the Chinese team did was they lowered those barricades to make it more difficult for Epsilon to actually get in to capture that C point, making obviously the defence slightly easier. But all it's going to take is a few explosions and they're in through to that C point. So let's find out from the tabletop how they're spreading out. Now, one thing I did notice as soon as the match began, you had a break, a 3-2 split of Epsilon. 3 went to the left, 2 went to the right. 1 remained up behind to capture the B point, and the other guy moved up towards C. Is that the kind of standard layout you'd expect to see from a Battlefield 4 5v5 team? Oh, unfixed just went flying.
The battle of B is going to be very critical here, but you see straight away from Epsilon, as soon as they look like they're about to be overwhelmed at B, they send Too Easy and Unfixed to go for C. So they realise they might have lost B quite early on, but they switched quickly, and the ticket bleed is only there for a split second before they manage to get the bleed back on their side.
Okay, so now let's find out. As you can see, pretty much, let's see who's left. Oh, it looks like Epsilon have lost a number. I think they've lost one of their guys. Yeah, that's not looking good. Now the question is whether or not they're going to pause it, or whether or not they're going to have to try and deal with that as best they can, as it's middle of the map. Do you reckon this is something that's going to really hurt Epsilon now? As it looks like, there we go, it's Winghaven who has lost. He is now rejoined. What kind of problems are caused to a 5v5 team by a drop out of a key player?
If this was Conquest, it would be severe, especially if it was someone who was a tanker or something else. In Domination, it's a setback, but not a massive one. It could be significantly worse. I mean, you might have to rotate players around a bit because certain players are defending certain areas, but seriously, it's not as bad as it could be in another game mode.
Right, so we are going to see what's going on, as it looks like Valu takes down Dirty Harry. No more unisex shopping for him as he's moving in towards the C point. So you've got Valu, who's now going to be going up against Skill Boost and Yros, and he's trying to guard that corridor from the lift. There we go. Looks like he's taken down one. Now that's quite interesting to see. We watched Valu. He took down one, but he didn't stop to try and take down the other. Now, wonder why that is, Dogbert.
I think, actually, what I'm paying attention to is how Epsilon's reacting to the pushes here. I mean, Unisex just tried to make a push onto C, but they were shut down immediately by Too Easy. Obviously, look of the spawns, they managed to get a guy onto B to hold the spawn, and now they're pushing onto Mort over at A, so now the bleed's back in them. But as I say, Epsilon immediately, as soon as they're about to lose a flag, they get 3 men straight onto B and capture that.
Now, I also noticed then that they just lost a member on the C point, and now you can see after they've captured that B point, they've immediately split their forces to try and push into that C point, at the same time as you've got 2 additional guys making a push towards the A point. Now Yros is in there trying to defend them. Now he's done a good job taking down Winghaven, and he's going to try and push the advantage onto Valu, but Valu gets a trade with him, and has, unfortunately, that's going to be a bit of a problem for Epsilon. They won't be able to move into that point, and that opportunity for them to take A may have been missed to them, but no, they've decided to push forward, as they had a full bleed on them for a brief few seconds there. So fortunately, they literally all respawned as an entire team, went over to A to make sure that that was captured as quickly as possible, Dogbert.
It did indeed. They got a very nice spawn on top of A. Now, this is going to be interesting, because you've got to realise that Epsilon are ahead 56 points here. So Unisex really need to get a good hold of this map. They need to get a good hold of 2 flags and bleed down Epsilon. They're not doing that. They're playing the game of musical flags, and they're not getting a good grip on the Epsilon team.
Now, looking at B, Cripsley is in there. He's obviously got his 416. And he's taking fire from the right. Now that was strange, because he took fire from the right but didn't actually seem to react to it. Now whether or not that was a slight bug relating to observer mode.
Winghaven was directly in front of him. He was cornered on all sides there by Epsilon players.
Yeah, very nasty. It's that because what you're talking about there is essentially a good crossfire. Is essentially how you can take these guys down as quickly as possible. Skill Boost popping some nades out, and you can see them moving pretty heavily into C, as Too Easy is now moving into C, back raging people left, right and centre. Dirty Harry gets cut to pieces. Too Easy doing a good job of taking down multiple members of the Royal team, and now they're going to be capturing that C point, and this could be a possibility of a full bleed, but no, Y-Roz has now moved into the A point, and they're in the process of trying to capture that. As let's see if we can find out what's going on with the Epsilon team. As you can now see them spreading their forces over. You've got guys guarding C, guys watching B, and you can see the majority of the forces just sneaking around. So they seem very comfortable not to go for A right now, because they know that they will have the advantage in the bleed as it stands at the moment once they get that C point. But it looks like any attempts are being shut down at the moment, Dogbert, as they're pushing into C.
Is indeed. I think this comes really just down to the superior experience of the Epsilon team. They know they've got a lead now. They're just extending it by fragging as much as they can. They don't really have to worry about too much on their flags right now. They're just being as aggressive as they can. They're not holding back. They're just chasing down the Unisex squad now. And yeah, I mean, the tickets from the last game was obviously 56 in favour of Epsilon, and it's fast coming down to the point where Unisex are not going to be able to win this map.
Right, now, one thing I do tend to notice is, what for your definition makes a good Battlefield player? Now, obviously, we're not talking about Battlefield pubber, we're talking about a competitive player. What is it about these competitive players that gives them the edge over other players? What is it that, so for example, if you were out there looking for a team or something like that, what would you actually look for in a player? What are the abilities that you would focus on?
The ability to react quickly to a changing situation, which is something very critical, obviously, in infantry battlefield. But obviously, good teamwork, able to not go Rambo when he's not, when he is desperately needed to hold positions, but really good aim and good reactions, which is the cornerstone of every FPS player, from Fatality all the way to Too Easy, and all the way to anyone who's ever set foot in an FPS game. The only real difference in Battlefield is the spawning on each other, the queue, which obviously you've recently done a video on, which is a very important feature and something that's being used by both teams extensively. Now, you might not see it if you are not so experienced in the Battlefield competitive scene, but a lot of these players are pressing Q as soon as they even think they can see someone. This opens up a whole world of pain on that opponent, because he becomes visible to the opposing team once he is spotted. So the ability to cue someone who maybe have just literally run around a corner, you will know where he's going for a few seconds, which means you can either shoot through a wall and kill him, or more importantly, you can send someone to intercept him before he gets into a dangerous position.
Definitely. Now, obviously, we're just looking a little bit of fire as Unfits gets taken down. Dirty Harry with a nice bit of fire, but he then gets shot in the back very quickly just as he was running past Y-Roz, and we're now watching Y-Roz as it looks like they're pushing down towards the A point. Now, I notice one of the main defenders of that A point seems to be Winghaven. He seems to be quite good at working by himself, holding up the team, and I say that, he just gets shot to death.
So he got a bit unlucky there. I mean, he heard someone coming, he was looking in the right direction, but the only thing he didn't know that there was also someone else there waiting for him.
Yeah, that's always going to be the problem. That's when you're doing a solo defensive situation, that's always going to be the hard gig. Now, just noticing that they had an entire bleed onto the China team, but that didn't last long, as now you can see Mort and friends making their way towards that C point, popping out those nades. Now that's interesting. I can see multiple nades going out. He just chucked out 3 nades. That means that they looks like they're actually using the mini nades, the little micros that enable them to throw it further distance. They don't do as much splash damage, but it enables you to actually carry 3 as opposed to a single one. So that's very interesting to see that being used in competitive play, Dogbert.
It'll be, well, we are in the Test Cup, so we are going to see a lot of things that we're going to be we might not have seen before. I mean, as I was saying before, Epsilon at one point had 3 flags, completely domination lockdown. Obviously, it didn't really matter for them at this point. They've obviously got a lead. They can sit back if they need to, but really they're just fragging for the fun of it right now. They're just showing that they are one of the most experienced FPS and BF teams in the scene right now.
Definitely. Now, you can hear the music in the background. There's more fire coming in from Winghaven. And of course, Mort in there as well. You can see him pushing in. taking a little bit, throwing a little bit of hot lead in the direction of the enemy. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Epsi take that round by 106 tickets. So that's a total, I guess, of, as he does his maths, 162. So over the course of that particular map. So according to the straw poll which we had in chat, yeah, pretty much. I think 85% of the viewers reckon Epsilon would take Shanghai, and they turned out to be correct. Now, obviously, the next one is Hainan Resort. Now, this is going to be interesting to see because, as you said previously, this is your favourite Battlefield map. Or Battlefield 4 map, I should say.
Is this Resort we will be playing?
I do believe so, according to the information from the match.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favourite maps.
All it needs now is elephants for you to be like doubly happy, doesn't it?
Well, I don't think we're too far off something like that happening. And the elephant in the room right now is how dominant Epsilon seem to be against this team. Now they did have a very shaky start in the first map. The ticket bleed was going against them, maybe 60-40% of the time, and there was a few times when they did push out in smaller numbers to try and take advantage of maybe that FPS advantage, but they were shut down quite a lot. So to be honest, I was quite surprised Epsilon even went down to 56 points on that first round. Maybe that's obviously them just getting used to it and getting the flow going, but obviously they kicked it up a notch in the second one by going 112. So are we back on Shanghai again?
Yeah, they're. I guess they're sorting things out in that respect. So I don't think they're actually playing it because they've got one man of the Royal is down, so they're obviously waiting for him to come back before they change it to Hainan Resort. But if you look at the detail on the actual match setup, you can see that basically the first map was Siege of Shanghai, second was Hainan Resort. So that's something that we've got to look forward to.
We do indeed. Obviously, guys, if you have never seen Domination before, it is very much like Conquest, but without vehicles, with a faster respawn, and it is an infantry-focused game. So you won't see any helicopters, you won't see any tanks. So keep that in mind when you're watching.
Yeah, definitely. Now, obviously, this is focused predominantly on the infantry, as Dogbert said. So, you know, we're trying to keep this as fun, as enjoyable for you as possible. Your comments are, of course, very welcome in Twitch chat or in the chat that you're watching at this current moment. And it is more than oh god, it's Siege of Shanghai again. We are more than happy to take any feedback that you wish to give us. Now, obviously, my colleague also will be working on our next match after this one. So you can see, obviously, that Epsilon, if they win this entire match, will then move on to the third round and the round of 32. And you can see, obviously, that there's plenty of other teams still in there as we move over towards the brackets. As you can see, here are the brackets. Plenty of people in here. So many teams. You can see E-Wave going up against, they've taken on Team Wilder from BF4. And you can see they managed to actually take that successfully. So they're looking for the winners of Punchline versus Team Mistral. Two French teams opposing each other, taking on a German team after that. Should make things very interesting. Evolution Esports, currently having a bye, waiting for Omerta and Name, question mark, great name. Ready to go on that one. So you can see all these people. Enigma Gaming taking on Frontline Gaming as well. And so many more teams coming through. So at this current moment, E-Wave Cup are the first people to make it to the round of 32. And there's still all to play for. I mean, so many teams. Look at this sheer number of teams that are in here today. And this is exactly the kind of thing that we need for the Battlefield 4 competitive community and for the community as a whole, is the ability to work through any kind of bugs that the game has, any kind of bugs that the mode has, sort out which guns are acceptable, sort out which guns are unacceptable as per the ban list, etc, etc. So it looks like they've finally decided to change to Hainan Resort, and it's time to get your towel on the side of the beach there, Dogbert, as it's ready to get some sun.
Always got to get your towel down before, especially the Germans. It always seems to be the Germans that have their towels well before us. Us poor Brits have to deal with that as a constant reminder of their organisation skills.
Oh dear, there's nothing like a little bit of casual xenophobia, is there? But no, it's all kidding aside. All kidding aside, but yeah, so it looks like that they're actually in the server at the moment, and we should be ready to go any second. So let's see as we move on and find out, as this is the second map. Yeah, everybody's in, and we should be underway any second now. Dogbert, how do you think they're going to run this one?
I think it's pretty much going to be both teams are going to go for their nearest flag. I think Royal is probably in the worst position here. They'll probably go for A and try and contest C. Both teams pretty much do the same thing. But it looks like Epsilon are the one who converge on C with the most men, which is probably what is the right idea on this map. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of feints and pushes to the least defended flags here. They're just going to find out where to pick. I mean, right now Epsilon have B and C, and they're going to hold this for, I think, yeah, you're not going to see much movement between B and C here. Not from Epsilon, at least. They're going to try and hold this for as long as they can.
Yeah,
it's
now,
Unisex that are going to be in the awkward position of being the ones who have to go on the offensive, but they've just done it in spectacular fashion.
So tell us more about this spectacular fashion that's just occurred. As I was just watching, let's look, Winghaven, there we go. Looks like he's capturing back the C point, and now the bleed is back onto the China team, Epsilon. As you can see, the conference room taken by the Chinese team, the bar obviously taken by the Chinese team. I would be surprised if you want to get into the bar first, and we're now looking at skill boost, as these guys are defending the bar with a vengeance. To be honest, who can blame them, Dogbert?
They are indeed. I'm just interested to see what Epsilon's strategy here is. They're just trying to overwhelm them at A, but it looks like as soon as any of their guys who are getting picked off at A, instead of respawning into the fight at A, they respawn over at B, where you have Winghaven and Bahalaja, or Reload as it used to be called, making their presence felt over on B. But Unisex response to this is perfect. They're threatening C while defending B. So they will hopefully end up with the bleed, but I'm saying that as Too Easy comes in to clean up.
Now we're
so you're seeing a very regular game here in Domination. I think that's what we're going to see from now on, which is pretty much trying to just hold the two flags, get the bleed going, and just hold tight.
Now I tend to notice that you don't see a lot of these guys using the gimme, the available weapons. Oh, Easy, unfortunately not seeing two enemy coming in from his 2 o'clock there, and then Winghaven also then being taken down. As you can see, those two guys pushing in towards the B the B capture point. Now they did have a full bleed onto the China team just then, and that's not going to go well for the Royal team. As we're watching Commander Vent, he's back in the bar again, and currently in the process of trying to defend himself, and he's hiding behind the bar, popping out nades left, right and centre, and he's got to be very careful because there's obviously somebody moving in, coming up the stairs. There we go, another member of Epsilon moving up, and now you can see fire coming out as Yros tries to move downstairs to do a little bit of outflanking manoeuvre onto Epsilon. There we go, back rages into Epsilon, takes down one, takes down two, Mort, and then Valu taken down. Yros with a fantastic back rage onto that A point. That was a pretty clutch play there, and now they've got a full bleed by the Chinese team onto the US team. That was pretty important for them there, Dogbert.
I was watching that. Very few times I actually managed to catch a good first-person mode, but that was brilliant. Completely caught two Epsilon guys with their pants down, but managed to clean it up when they were aware of his presence, which has now put them in a position that they really need. They need to just keep hold of two flags for a while. Epsilon reacted correctly, took B, and now they're going to be threatening C as soon as they can.
Now I can see that obviously out comes the revive from Mort. You can see him pushing in towards that point, trying to move round the side of the enemy. There we go, outflanking manoeuvre onto Dirty Harry from Mort, and now they're in a position to hold that flag, and it's looking like a pretty standard fare here. Now the trouble is obviously You've got Skill Boost and friends moving in to start putting pressure onto the B site, as it looks like you've obviously got Valu in there as well. Oh, look at that! Oh, look at that! Beautiful stuff coming in for Valu. That attempt to push B there by the Royal team shut down very effectively by Valu, and he's trading fire with Dirty Harry and taking him down there. So that's good defensive work there by Valu. He managed to hold off an attempt to push by the Royal team into that B point, and now they have a full bleed onto the Chinese team. Dogbert.
They have managed to keep this full cap going for quite a significant amount of time, and they were behind on tickets, but not by very much. But this is now going to put Epsilon in a significant lead. More importantly, Epsilon seem to just be holding the building now, while Unisex are forced out near the pool area, and they're not really getting much their presence felt in the centre of the map. I think they're going to push on to A here and try and put a feeler out to B, but right now they are being outclassed.
Now, obviously,
as I say that, Winghaven gets taken straight from behind, and that is going to give Unisex the A flag.
Okay, now you can see obviously Mort popping out some of those med packs to try and keep himself alive, as Valu is moving down towards the C point to try and defend that, working together with his teammate Unfixed, as attempts there by the Royal team to push in towards the B. Oh, Dirty Harry gets taken down. Mort then moving in to try and finish off the enemy. There we go, firing through the bits and pieces in the hotel reception. So you can now see him moving into a nice outflanking manoeuvre, possibly. I thought he was going to go for a flying knife there, but unfortunately Mort was unsuccessful. But yet again, more attempts to push in towards that B bomb site, or B capture point, being shut down very effectively by Epsilon. Digbert, whatever. Digbert, Dogbert, whatever, Bob. Yeah, blah blah blah.
The full domination camp that Epsilon had, its presence is now completely felt. They are in the driving seat for this map. At this point, Unisex really need to completely wipe Epsilon and hold them for a significant amount of time. Unfortunately, they're playing the musical flag game, and more importantly, Epsilon are the ones dictating where it's happening.
Isn't that kind of, this is obviously the kind of strategy that applies to most kind of battles, is that you want the enemy to fight the battle on your terms, not on theirs. Now, obviously, that's pretty much standard fare, probably from Sun Tzu and the Art of War, but these are the kind of things that have been proven to work in pretty much every FPS game and strategy-related game that's out there. And obviously, as you've had a lot of exposure to that sort of thing, Dogbert, you've probably seen quite a bit of it.
I have indeed, but what I'm basically seeing in this game is a mix of very good FPS skills, very good experience, and just overall better map awareness. Epsilon really have been able to predict where Unisex are going to be in most cases. They haven't really been surprised, except from in the odd case, but more importantly, they're just keeping a good hold of this flag, the control of the flags in this map. Yeah. I mean, the resort itself has pretty much always been in the hand of Epsilon, and it's been Unisex that have always been on the outskirts trying to come in. And as you see right now, they already have 2 flags, and that ticket bleed is already significant. You've got to remember they were already ahead by 162 from the previous round here, so Unisex either need to do something colossal and get a huge amount of kills and hold the domination for quite a while, or they will find themselves very soon to be out of this tournament. Yeah, definitely. Now, obviously, that kind of requirement is a very tall order against a team with the experience of Epsilon. To be honest, you know, you wouldn't expect them to be able to do that against the likes of, you know, like Extersus or some of the bigger teams like, you know, Epsilon Esports and Dignitas. So they've got a very, very tall order to try and turn this around. And like you're saying, Epsilon are literally dictating how this map progresses. It is at their leisure. And let's find out what's going on. As you can see, the B point being held by China, and they're just content to hold the C and the A and to keep the pressure straight onto B, so at least these guys do not know what they're going for. So it looks like Mort is in on a little bit of a roaming, but it looks like, no, actually the Epsilon team has decided to go a little bit more aggressive. You've got Valu, who's trying to defend the point. Unfortunately, he's being cut down, so they're going to lose A, but at the same time as A is being captured, they're going to B is going to be lost as well, and then C also is going to get captured as well. So Epsilon seem to be taking it very, not so much carefully, but deliberate, wouldn't you say, Dogbert? They're in the driving seat here. At this point, they might be down 2 flags, but they'll rectify that quite quickly. I mean, it really comes down to, they know they've got a big lead here, they can be very aggressive, they can just come in, they can get the kills, they're confident enough in leaving flags undefended. They are very comfortable in their movement, and they, for most of the game, as I said, have controlled the resort, which means they're able to move to every flag very quickly. Meanwhile, Unisex are kind of second-guessing where Epsilon are going to be and are always taking the longest route, which is losing them time when they need to get a flag.
Yeah, now the thing is, obviously, you were seeing there from the spread of the Epsilon team members, you obviously had one guy who was guarding the car park, and you had another guy who was then moving out on the far right hand side, and that's 106 tickets on Hainan in favour of Epsilon. So the Royal team not looking good right now.
No, and I think they had a good first round against Epsilon, and really at that point they could have been able to make something of it. But I think they're starting to second-guess themselves. They're starting to maybe panic about committing fully to an attack on a flag, and Epsilon are picking them off and pretty much just rolling them when it comes to one-on-one exchanges.
Definitely appears to be the case now. Obviously, we're going to be going on to the next round where the teams will be changed around. And it looks like the Royal team have lost one of their members, so obviously a few server restarts will be required before we move on to the final round for Hainan Resort. And then based on that, we shall have a look at the brackets, as obviously that will take, if Epsilon.Razer, which we are expecting them to do, to take this this particular match, generally will then move on to the third round, the round of 32, and knocking on the door of the final 16. Now, also notice down the bottom you can see Against All Authority versus Dignitas. Now that's going to be interesting because obviously Dignitas, there's a team with a lot of history and generally known as a powerhouse, so it could end up that we could end up looking at some kind of Epsilon Dignitas final, which would be an interesting experience, wouldn't it?
It'd be lovely to see that happen, but obviously we got to quite see how that gets, but
there's still plenty to go.
There's plenty of chances for a big upset from a less-known team. But AAA going down almost 450 tickets is significant.
Yes, very much so. Now, we move on to the new round. And you can see here, it looks like Royal have gone pretty hardcore into that... into the car park as fireworks, or I hope that's a firework going off as an explosion. I am in Essex, so I can never tell. As now you can see Epsilon Mort, he's the person who is guarding the A point. As you can see the Epsilon, there's Value in there as well, now taking down that particular point. So he's now one thing I do tend to notice about Value is that when he's capturing that point over by the sea, he then literally cycles round, goes round very wide to try and capture any people who are coming in from the spawn in towards the B bomb site. So very interesting play there by Value as poor old Too Easy gets taken down as he's trying to push in towards B, and now you can see the A point being captured by the Royal team. So it looks like Epsilon only have a single point at the moment. However, you can see Unfixed working together with his teammate pushing in towards that A bomb site. So there's Too Easy working together, and you can see him reviving one of his teammates, and now they're going to start pushing up very hard into that next point. And you can see now they've got the bleed on to the US team. Oh, sorry, onto the China team. So the bleed is not in favour of Epsilon at the moment. So interesting to see how this round's turning out thus far, Dogbert.
Is indeed, and I think Epsilon maybe caught out a bit there at the beginning, and Unisex very aggressive coming in there and getting the flags. But at this point, Unisex really need to exert their dominance here. They need to start getting a bit more control, and they're just not managing to do it. They're just slowly but surely being whittled away by a more experienced and an all-round better team at the moment, but in Epsilon.
Yeah, sorry, just to let you guys know, apologies if for whatever reason the stream cut out. We just lost connection to Twitch. So my apologies for any of those guys out there who are watching and unfortunately lost connection. So we are still here, we are still broadcasting, and I apologise for any technical problems that you guys have had. However, we will continue, as you can see now Epsilon and Too Easy who's guarding the A point, and now you can see obviously there's Unfixed who's taken Value's position over by the C point to try and stop the likes of Crips Leet who's moving down on the left side. Oh, it looks like he runs into Unfixed, but Unfixed turns and drills him in the head very quickly indeed. As now you can see Mort then moving in and spawning on his teammate Unfixed on the right hand side. They can now start pushing in towards that B bomb site, as you can notice also that Epsilon are now using 3 men to try and defend that A point, and you've obviously got Unfixed who can then float between the C point and the B point at the same time as Mort then moves in towards the A, or sorry, the B point. Dogbert.
Indeed, I mean, really, it's trying to guess where that spawn is going to come in from, because it's quite nasty if you got only maybe 2 or 1 man defending a flag, and then all of a sudden 3 people turn up behind you. It's quite a shock to the system. But right now, with Epsilon, they've got A and B. They can pretty much attack C if they ever feel threatened on any of those flags. And really, Epsilon are once again in the driving seat with 170 to 140, sorry.
Okay,
and
well,
as soon as they thought they were in trouble with the other flags, Windhaven instantly jumps down into C and captures that immediately for Epsilon.
Indeed. Now, my apologies, guys. Yeah, technical problems relating to the stream. We are back up and running. Thank you for your patience. We appreciate it. And now you can see attempt there by the Royal team to push into B again. Got shut down very quickly by Unfixed and Mort. So you can see now Mort working together, where Unfixed working. Now, one thing you did notice there, that's he didn't actually go for the revive until he actually knew that the area was clear, because you don't want to take the chance of leaving himself open to getting killed and possibly changing the state of the game in somebody else's favour. So smart play there by Unfixed, obviously, sign of a good player. And now you can see the C point being marked, and there we go, parachuters coming in from the roof. That was very interesting. You notice that the Royal team decided to use the lift, go up to the top of the hotel, and then try and parachute down onto the C point, coming in from a direction that the Epsilon team did not expect, Dogbert.
I'm quite surprised. I thought the roof would play a lot more significant part in this game, but I've been proven wrong. But it usually seems to be best to stay mainly inside the resort. But I figured the roof would be very significant with being able to drop down onto either A, B or C quite quickly, but I guess I've been proved wrong in my prediction of that.
Apparently so, yeah. Now, obviously, we're looking at the bleed at the moment. The US team has the bleed on them. They're down to 86, 87, 80, and look at that, there's a full bleed. That is a total and utter bleed. Now, notice what you should see Epsilon doing. They are looking to spawn lock these guys. So you can see, obviously, Value and Too Easy holding the B site. Mort, who just got taken down, so it looks like the A point will now be a weak area. So that you can see now Too Easy starting to move towards that general direction. Mort has respawned, and now they're looking to hold that point with Unfixed guarding one of the flanks, and they're looking to spawn knock these guys down. And 162 tickets to 65 with a full total bleed onto the opposing team. This is not looking good for Royal.
No, and I think at this point in the game it's Epsilon just exploiting their initial advantages and now just really holding on to that full domination. I think both teams now just really kind of playing for the fun of it. I'm hoping after this game to be able to get Dignitas as our next matchup for tonight.
That would be very interesting to see. Very interesting indeed. Okay, so oh dear. It looks like Too Easy is slid to a halt by one of the barriers as he's pushing in towards the A site. So now you can see that's Mort moving in, and he is trying to take that point. And so, yeah, what a surprise. Mort's in the bar. Get out of the bar, Mort. God's sake. So you can now see him as he's in there doing his thing. As you can now watch as other members of Epsilon are moving up. And you can see there the bleed on C is being taken off, and there we go, now has been reapplied. and the full bleed is back on. And then if you look at the overlay, you can see Epsilon spread its numbers all across the front. You can see, yeah, these guys are getting ultra aggressive. Valu going in very aggressively, almost getting into the swimming pool and having a paddle, but looks like unfortunately the attempt there, Mort was shut down as he was defending A, and now Too Easy is moving up onto the A point, popping nades in there to try and take them down. Looks like a couple of nice hits there, and now you can see him moving in as Too Easy, and you've got Winghaven popping up the nades as well, as they are absolutely demolishing this bar. These guys are no respecter of property, and now you can see them moving in, taking that point at the same time as the C point is then being attacked by Valu, who's in there trying to do his thing, popping out the nades, going for multiple kills. Out comes the pistol, goes into Commander Vent. Oh, lovely triple kill there by Valu, and he's in the position to reapply the bleed and capture that point back. So looking pretty good as far as he is concerned there, Dogbert.
Is indeed, and Epsilon here obviously just exerting their superior knowledge of the game and previous abilities, and have just shown themselves to be a very strong team. I mean, that is a large score there. Was that 153?
Yep, 153 on that particular round.
On top of a already
106.
268 from the previous games.
It was 106 in the previous round. So yeah, obviously that's pretty.
421.
Wow, that's a pretty serious amount of ticketing going on there. So there you go. That has been Epsilon. They move on to the next round, and we shall be picking up hopefully the next match very shortly.